Hello everyone, and welcome to the Sitecore Summer School webinar entitled CX and Your Bottom Line. Sitecore Summer School will span a number of roles, not just IT and marketing, while addressing 12 subjects from context marketing and mobile experience, personalization, and the art of possible, and everything in between to ensure you have all you need to ace customer experience. With more than 80 sessions available live and on demand during July and August, Sitecore Summer School will enable you to rethink your digital marketing strategy and lead transformation and disruption in your organization. Sessions from digital marketing leaders like Forrester Research, Vans & Born, and Avanade will give you the answers when you need to demand more from your current strategy. And now I'd like to introduce you to today's speaker. Today we're joined live by Kelsey Parrish, Senior Project Manager at Vans & Born, an independent market research firm. Kelsey is responsible for overall management of numerous technology-focused global market research projects, and she, like all Vans & Born, specializes in taking percentages and data and creating something meaningful, helping organizations to position themselves ahead of their competitors, armed with unique insights and narratives. Since joining Vans & Born in 2013, Kelsey has worked with a number of tech giants on a range of topics and materials to develop strong thought leadership content. These includes names such as Sitecore, Avanade, Intel, VMware, and BT, amongst many others. Over to you, Kelsey.
Great. Thanks very much, Talia. And thanks, everybody, for joining the webinar today. The title of this webinar is Customer Experience and Your Bottom Line. So just to give you a bit of background as to how we got to that point, and pre-warning, there is data included throughout this webinar. We are an independent market research firm here at Vans & Born, so there will be percentages, there will be data points, but I promise I will keep it interesting, I will give you context, and there are also lots of lovely graphics to break up those data points as well as we move through. So some background as to how we got here. And we all know that customers are crucial to businesses. They are the jewel in the crown, if you will. And traditionally, businesses have always adapted to suit the customer, whether that be in the products that they offer, the services they offer, how they market themselves, how they brand themselves. They have always adapted to suit what it is that the customer wants. Now, this level of customer empowerment is further fueled by the digital age that we live in. Customers have hundreds of brands ready and waiting at their fingertips to snap them away from their competitors. Customers are expecting a seamless experience. They want 24/7, always-on content. And companies have realized in recent years that they have to do more than ever to keep hold of their customers. Therefore, we've seen a greater focus on customer experience in these recent years. We know that customer experience focus is effective in keeping and making your customers happy. But what Sitecore and Avanade came to my company to ask a few months ago was, what is the impact of that customer experience focus on an organization's bottom line? How much tangible kind of financial benefit is there if you focus on your customer experience? That was data that they couldn't find out there in the real world at that time, and it's something that they set out to find out using our research program. Ultimately, this webinar, while we will be telling you the effect on the customer themselves, the impact across different areas of your business, what I want you to take away from today is that ammunition to be able to go to your board and say, this is why we need to be investing in our customer experience. This is potentially what we are missing out on and what we are handing to our competitors on a plate. So that is where we came in. Just briefly to recap the people that were involved within this study so that you have a general view of who it is that's answered the questions. We interviewed 880 decision makers, and they had to have responsibility or influence over the digital experience in their organization. Respondents came from 6 countries across the globe, so 300 of these 880 decision makers were made up from North America, split across the US and Canada. We then had a further 160 in the UK and in Germany, and then making up the remainder, 2 APAC regions, 120 in Australia and 120 in Singapore. We interviewed across 14 sectors, and they included banking and capital markets, consumer goods and services, electronics and high tech, and of course the ever customer-facing sector, retail. And just to make sure that we were targeting those organisations that could afford to be investing in their customer experience, and therefore were going to give us the real results that we were looking for, respondents predominantly came from organisations with an annual revenue of $1 billion or more. So big organisations involved in this study. Okay, so without further ado, the big stat, if you like, to take away from today, this is the one that's going to have you beating down a path to your board's door, because this is the return on investment that you can expect from focusing on your customer experience, according to our respondents. Triple. Threefold investment on every $1 that you spend on the customer experience strategy is expected as a result of this focus. So huge numbers here. It doesn't matter what way you say it, triple, threefold, times 3, you are going to be seeing a $3 return on every $1 spent on your customer experience strategies. Absolutely huge numbers. We have looked at this in terms of where it falls regionally, and we can see on the next slide that the global figure, $2.85, that it has been rounded up to $3 on the previous slide. So that's the global return on investment for every $1 spent. Moving down the list, next are US and Canada. So actually, these two regions falling slightly below the global average, but it's still, I mean, Canada here is the lowest return on investment seen, and it's still double. So you spend $1, you see $2 come back when you focus on your customer experience strategy appropriately. In the orange bar below here, the biggest return on investment that we've seen across the regions, and it's actually in the UK. So a $4 return on investment here, really high, quadruple the return on investment. And that's followed by Germany, which is actually over the global average as well, $2.94. So both of those European regions seeing a return that's greater than across the rest of the regions that we interviewed and across that global average. And just following up, we have Australia and Singapore there, fairly middle ground in terms of where they fell, and Australia is only slightly ahead of Canada, but again, it is still at least double the investment, regardless of the region. If you focus on your customer experience strategy effectively and appropriately, then you will see at least double your investment, if not triple, and for those very lucky few, quadruple. So that's the kind of overall monetary figure that we see as a result of this focus. But where is this actually tangible within the business? Which parts of the business is this really going to hit when the focus is got right? So, just focusing on the bottom corner of the screen there, respondents who do focus on their customer experience strategies see vast improvements in many areas across the business, and that really is the truth. On the left-hand side here, focusing first and foremost on the customer benefits, I did say that we would be talking about those benefits that you can take to your boardroom, but first and foremost, this is customer experience research. So let's see the benefits that will be given over to the customer. The first being a 19% increase in customer satisfaction. Secondly, a 20% increase in customer loyalty. And by the way, this time frame here, this was all asked in a year's space. So over the previous year, how much of an increase or an improvement have you seen across these areas? So really big figures. 19% improvement in the retention and the acquisition of your customers. And finally, a 22% improvement, so the biggest percentage point we see on the left-hand side of the screen, in the lifetime value of your customers. So really vast improvements across every area of what is ultimately that customer life cycle. So we make customers happier, they are more loyal, they are retained with the business, and you're also able to acquire new customers. But not only are they sticking around, they actually have greater value to your business as a result of sticking around, because you focused on that customer experience strategy. Now, those were the customer benefits. Now, what about the benefits in the back pocket for organisations? And an even bigger chart appears here on the right. First, the efficiency benefits. So our respondents reported an 18% increase in their productivity and a 20% improvement in their sales cycles. So faster sales cycles, less focus on certain areas of the business means that they are able to increase their productivity. They are better at what they do as a result of focusing on their customer experience strategy. The next few, and I think about 4 do pop up here, so bear with me, but these are the monetary benefits that are coming out, the financial benefits. So starting from the top, respondents reported a 19% increase in their revenues. So I mean, that's kind of a drop the mic moment right there. You could just walk away with that. 19% increase in your revenues is absolutely fantastic. An 18% increase in profitability, if we move down one. A 21% increase in your competitive financial performance. Now that becomes really poignant when we move into some of the later slides in this deck. So remember that figure, but a 21% increase in your financial performance compared to your competitors. Really, really fantastic. And also a 17% reduction in cost, likely increasing those efficiencies that are being seen, the increased productivity and the improved sales cycles as well. There's one gap left over here, and this kind of harks back to the first slide that we looked at, and it's a 20% increase in return on investment. So we're already seeing a $3 return for every $1 spent on the customer experience, but actually respondents estimate that they've seen a 20% increase in this return on investment in the last year. Does that mean that they are also going to see a huge increase in the years to come as well? And will that $3 return actually get even bigger for these organisations? Well, spoiler alert, that very much will happen on the next slide. But just to give you a little bit of an EMEA focus for this slide, Germany in particular, in all but competitive financial performance and reduced costs, in all of the other options, the German respondents within our study say that they've seen the highest level of increase across these areas. So they are doing something very much right at the moment. They are seeing big increases across these areas. They actually are the least likely to have a formal customer experience strategy in place of any region, but the majority of them are developing one. And it seems that those benefits that are coming from this formal customer experience, they are very much at the forefront of mind for our German respondents, or they are having a very big impact right now, going from no strategy to an implementation or having an actual strategy means that they are really seeing these benefits and feeling the impact of these benefits at the moment. So not only are the benefits being seen, they are heavily anticipated, and I've kind of alluded to this already, but on the following slide, the respondents say that similar percentage improvements are anticipated across the next 24 months. So all of those 18, 19, 20 and 21% on the previous slide are replicated here. You can see that, again, big impact, big increase across that customer cycle, the customer satisfaction, the loyalty, the retention and acquisition, and the lifetime value. And again, 18 and 19% across the board here for all of those business benefits. And just to bring us back to this higher return on investment, 20% had said that they'd seen it across the year, and that has led to them having a $3 return. 19%, respondents estimate another 19% increase in the return on investment over the next 24 months. So they have very strong benefits that are coming through in the short term, in the last 12 months, but also into the future. In the next 24 months, these benefits do not look likely to wane when our respondents are focusing on their customer experience strategies. So just drawing your eye back to the improvement in the lifetime value of customers here, we're going to take a more focused look into this on the following slide, and actually it's acting more so as evidence that all of these benefits are very much interlinked. The chances are you won't be having one of these benefits without also hitting 2 or 3 others. But on the flip side, if you're not focusing on your customer experience strategy and you aren't seeing one benefit, you're also probably not seeing the rest. So it's very much on that knife edge whether or not you will see pretty much all of the benefits or none at all. So bear that in mind when we flick to the next slide. So, first and foremost, adding weight to what we've previously said, 99% of our respondents agree that providing a strong customer experience will improve a customer's lifetime value. Well, we know that because we saw previously that 21% say that their customer lifetime value, 22% say that their customer lifetime value has already increased over the past 12 months, and a further 20% or so who say that it will continue to do so over the next 24. So we know that a strong customer experience will improve a customer's lifetime value. What's really interesting is that we also see that 72% of respondents agree that improving a customer's lifetime value will increase the revenue. So further evidence that it is interlinked, that it is a snowball effect. Another 65% say that improving a customer's lifetime value will grow profitability for your business. So this snowball effect is very much in place and kind of happening where you are able to improve your customer's lifetime value. That's great. You've done so by having happy, satisfied customers, making them more loyal, retaining them, and improving their lifetime value. That, in turn, increases your revenue, grows your profitability. That allows you to invest further in the customer experience strategy. You're able to reduce your costs, you're able to improve your sales cycles, and everything is just in this big spider web of being interlinked and reliant on each other. So really, to reiterate, if you are seeing those benefits, chances are you are seeing all of them, and if you are not seeing them, then you would not be seeing any of those benefits. So, despite all of these fantastic benefits that improving the lifetime value will bring to an organization, how valued are these customers to their organizations? Do they actually place value on their lifetime customers? Well, yes, on the face of it, absolutely. 37% of the respondents, and we asked a bit of a cheesy, quirky question here where they had to assign a jewel or a gem or a material to their lifetime customer's value. And that scale ran from diamonds, right at the top, all the way down to tin, so that they felt like they just served a purpose for them. And 37% of our respondents would consider their lifetime customers to be like diamonds, which is excellent. It's still the minority. It's still under 2 in 5. So if you think of your competitors, just 2 in 5 of those would say that their lifetime customers are diamonds. But the majority of the remaining respondents, 46%, would say that they are like platinum. So they do consider them to be of high value to their organization. Now, I just want you to take a few seconds here, and this is where we get interactive. We have a short poll for you, and this is mirroring one of the questions that was asked to our respondents. At what point do you think your delight would turn to frustration? And the answer options here: when you feel unimportant or undervalued by the brand, when you don't get a response from a brand, when you cannot find a product to meet your needs, or when your experience is disconnected. And I just want you to take a second to cast a vote. Yeah, at the risk of sounding like a 90s very cheesy game show host, please do cast your vote, and we will talk about that in just a few seconds. Okay, interesting results coming out. We actually have a tie between when you feel unimportant and unvalued and when you do not get a response from a brand, both at 27.3%, and the least likely to make you feel frustrated, make you want to walk away from a brand, is when you can't find a product. Oh, sorry, and the top here actually is when your experience is disconnected. So it seems that you guys on the end of this webinar are a bit more forgiving than the people within our study, because when we asked this question to our respondents, 52%, sorry, skipped ahead, 52% say that their customer delight is likely to turn to frustration if they feel unvalued by the brand. So that top answer there, the 27% of you who said that's what's likely to make you feel frustrated and make you want to walk away from a brand, that's exactly how our respondents felt. So we asked them to put on their customer hat, and they said that when they feel unvalued or unimportant, they feel frustrated. They're likely to walk away from a brand. So I guess we thought about this in a few ways, but the way that I want to say today, I want to talk about today, is are brands actually valuing the customers, as they say they are on the left-hand side of the screen, because they care, because they listen, because they want to act on what it is their customers want, or is it simply because they know that themselves as customers would walk away from a brand if they felt unvalued? So I guess what I'm trying to say is it forced value? Is there a genuine level of care and want and desire to listen to the customers and act upon what they want and they say they want? Or is it just simply they know that on the surface they have to look like they value them, because if they don't, then they will walk away from their brand? So I want you to take a moment to just think, and this one isn't a poll, so don't worry, but I want you to take a moment to think, are you really, really listening to your customers? Do you and does your organisation know what it is that they want? And are you in a position, and this is a really interesting question, are you in a position to preempt your customers' desires, so almost to know what it is that your customers want before they know themselves? Now, if internally or externally you are saying no to any of those questions, then you're really, really not alone when it comes to, oh, sorry, thought I'd missed a slide out then. You're really, really not alone when it comes to this, according to the respondents in our research. So 64% report that competition is a driver to customer experience, more so than customer feedback itself. So the majority, 64%, are saying that it is their competitors, it is what other people within their space are doing that drives them to prioritize their customer experience, much more so than what it is that their customers are telling them. Now, the chances are they have an internalized view, really, of what it is that their customers want, because they aren't necessarily listening to what their customers want. So it is very much a case of, we think this is roughly what the people who buy our products, use our services, are looking for, so we'll go ahead and invest money here, but we won't listen to our metrics even. It doesn't even need to be a direct two-way conversation with a customer. They don't necessarily listen to their metrics, or listen to what it is their customers are saying and make decisions from there. They are being realistically dragged along by their competition. I mean, they may be front runners, they may be slightly ahead of their competition, but ultimately it's a race that they aren't going to ever win, because until that competition becomes the goal, beating a competition becomes the goal rather than the driver, you're very, very unlikely to ever get into that space ahead of your competitors. And if we think about this in a different way, if you want to try and get into that space ahead of your competitors, then listening to your customers when none of your other competitors do that will by default get you into that space. So it's almost like, forget the competition, listen to what your customers are saying, and by proxy you will end up ahead of your competitors. It really is that simple. The reason we know that so many of our respondents are not ahead as well, this is not saying competition isn't important. Of course competition is important. It will always be an important part of business. But by listening to your customers, you can put yourself ahead. And we know that the respondents, the organizations in our study, are not necessarily ahead because we asked them. 96% said that they have or they are developing a formal customer experience strategy. So they are investing here. They recognize that it is important and they are spending money, they are focusing, they are building strategies here. But only the very minority say that they are one step ahead of their customers' changing expectations. So to reiterate, if you can get yourself in that space by listening to what your customers want and acting upon what your customers want, that will by default put you ahead of your competitors because there are only 14% who believe that they are able to do that in the first place. Nobody is in that space yet. So by listening to your customers, you can get yourself into that space. And I just want to talk about a bit of a case study here, really, that illustrates this really, really well. For those of you listening from the UK, or for anybody really who's ever travelled to the UK and London, you'll probably be aware of Transport for London. But if you're not, it's very much clues in the name. It is the London transport system. And back in 2014, one of the busiest transport systems in the world, they introduced contactless payment in the tube stations and on the buses. Now, their customers had been complaining for a significant while, really, that they didn't want to be queuing at turnstiles because somebody's Oyster card doesn't have any money on it and they've had to kind of fight their way back through a queue. They don't want to be queuing at cash points and at Oyster card top-up points. I mean, we, as a nation, we love queuing, and we told them we didn't want to be doing that anymore. It was too much. We're busy people. That's why we're in London. And we need to be getting up. Those 20 seconds of our day are incredibly important. So we told Transport for London that. And not once was contactless payment mentioned. Customers didn't know what contactless payment was at the time. I mean, me personally, I've only really been using contactless payment on a day-to-day basis since the end of last year. In the UK, it wasn't hugely prominent, and in 2020 certainly wasn't prominent. So customers were not saying, give us contactless payment. They were saying, fix a problem, make something better for us, because we have holes and issues in the way that we get to work in the morning. And Transport for London, they came up with a solution. They preempted their customers' wants and desires because their customers didn't know that they wanted contactless payment at this point. But they were innovative and they thought ahead, and they were able to get into that space ahead of their customers' changing expectations. And almost as if they knew I was going to be talking about them today, yesterday it was announced that they're actually selling the technology that they have, the contactless technology within the tube systems, for £15 million to other countries to use within their transport systems. So they have got happy customers as a result of listening to what their customers want and acting on it. They have got increased revenue. They have got put themselves as thought leaders in the space, in the travel industry, for sure, in the transport industry, because they were able to get themselves ahead of what it is that their customers are looking for. Really, really crucial when you think competition is key, but actually to get ahead of your competitors, you need to get ahead of your customers. So only 14% are one step ahead. Not many at all. 86% say that they are not one step ahead. So which areas actually require improvement? Which areas are organizations saying they need help? Because, I mean, that's really what they're saying, isn't it? They require improvement. They need help across different areas of their connected delivery experience. And actually, it's quite significant help. So the vast majority in this image on the screen at the moment, this connected experience, the cycle of connected experience, the vast majority say that they require improvement at every stage of this. So 84% require improvement in the building of the strategy, 80% in the development, 83% in the implementation of their customer experience strategy and delivering that connected experience, 84% in managing it, and 83% in maintaining it. So across the board, regardless actually of whether you are in that 14%, I was going to say forget that 14% for now, but actually don't forget them because they were included within this question. And even then, even those 14% who say that they're ahead of their customers, that they are thought leaders in that space really, they are still saying that they require help across at least one of these stages of delivering a connected experience, but probably more, even all 5 of them. So really significant kind of requirements for help and improvement across every stage here. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. Our respondents in a couple of slides' time told us how they actually overcome the hurdles in order to start seeing the benefits that we saw right at the start of the presentation. But first, let's talk about what those hurdles actually are. So these are the areas that they need improvement in, they need help in. But what hurdles have they actually had to overcome, or are they facing currently to get to this strong customer experience? Well, first and foremost, it is the vast majority who say that they've seen obstacles to delivering a good customer experience. So 88% say that they have seen obstacles. Again, regardless of that 14% who are ahead, 88% have seen hurdles and obstacles to getting to a good customer experience. These obstacles look like this. So 44% said that it was their outdated systems and services that needed updating, that needed modernizing. The technology they're using is just not up to date enough to deal with the type of customer experience they need to deliver. 41% said a lack of internal skills to build, implement and manage that end-to-end customer experience. So basically everything we saw on the previous slide, they're unable internally to have the skill level needed to build, implement and manage. And actually that adds a new element to the previous slide, because not only do they require help, but it's fairly clear that a lot of them will require external help to do that. And it's not just going to be something that they can that they need help with and they can kind of cover off in-house. It's something that they will need to seek external help with. 39% say an inability to provide a seamless experience is an obstacle, and 34% an inability to analyse customer data, or if we think of that in another way, an inability to listen and act upon what it is that your customers are telling you, because it's a much more kind of practical answer option in that it's the tools and the methods and the fact that they have disparate data sets that are a problem, but ultimately the end of that means that they cannot listen and act upon what their customers are asking them to do. And finally, there are 22%, so a fifth of the respondents who say that it's an inability to provide a 24/7 always-on service to their customers, which we all know is something that is increasingly difficult actually, but is increasingly desired by customers because they do have everything at the push of a button. So our second poll question and final one of this webinar, but I just want you to think that image on the left-hand side of the slide that we just looked at with all those stickmen climbing over hurdles, columns, they all had coloured bibs on them. I will just actually go back so that you can visualise it a little bit better. So we've got orange here. So I want you to think, the poll, I want you to think, when it comes to delivering a good customer experience, would you consider your business to be orange? So this guy, furthest right of the picture, just inches away from achieving that 5-star experience, having overcome a number of obstacles. Would you consider your business to be blue? So this guy's sitting on top of the pink column here, having made it about halfway through your journey, obstacles are being overcome, but you still have a way to go. Would you consider yourself to be pink? This one that's kind of pole vaulting up the middle of two of these columns, attempting to tackle obstacles but finding yourself a bit stuck, needing a helping hand for the next one. Or are you green, furthest left of the graphic? You're at the starting blocks when it comes to customer experience. You're eager to get going, but you're unsure of where to start. I'll just give you a few seconds to vote. Okay, so we actually have a complete even three-way tie between blue, pink, and green, but actually nobody has said they're orange. So very, very honest answers here, and that's really appreciated, because as much as we want people to be in that 14% who are ahead, and that is the end goal, of course it is, it's just not the reality at the moment. The very nature of customers and the way that they change their demands means that they are always moving the goalposts, and it's very frequent, and it's actually by quite some way sometimes. New technologies are introduced, customers want something new. The whole kind of Pokemon Go thing that's just suddenly blown up and exploded means that location-based tracking may suddenly become the forefront of customers' minds. How are people going to respond to that? Who knows? So the fact that nobody has said that they are orange is a really honest and realistic answer, I think, in terms of the real state of customer experience. But as I said, it is an even tie between blue, pink, and green. So everyone, I was going to say, for those of you who are not orange, but actually just everybody, the next couple of slides are going to tell you how the respondents in our study were able to overcome these obstacles, and hopefully give you some inspiration or something to take away today to consider how you can overcome the obstacles as well. So the way in which that the respondents have overcome these obstacles, 78% say that they've done so by upgrading or adopting a marketing technology. So they've done so by overcoming that biggest hurdle that we saw on the slide with the obstacles, with that graphic. 44% said that they were held back by having outdated systems, and 78% have managed to already achieve the benefits seen on the first couple of slides by upgrading or adopting a marketing technology. 50% have done so by either leveraging third-party providers or upgrading skills. So the second biggest obstacle on that obstacle chart that we saw, 41% who said that they had a lack of internal skills, or 50% have overcome those already to see the benefits that we've seen by either outsourcing and leveraging third-party providers or by upgrading their skills internally. And just, if we focus on how big these numbers are, there is definitely crossover here. The majority of the respondents who've answered this question are incredibly likely to have actually done both of these. So it's not just a one solution fits all, and it's not just a we can do one solution and we will solve the problem. It's very much a case of mix and match, figure out what works for you. But for the majority of our respondents, it is upgrading your marketing technology and upgrading your skill set. Now, this is also how those respondents who haven't yet quite seen the benefits, they expect to do so in the future. So a tried and tested method almost that other businesses are following suit with. 82% said that they will achieve these benefits by upgrading or adopting marketing technology. And 53% will do so by leveraging a third-party provider or upgrading new skills. So two clear ways to go on to achieve those benefits is by jumping those two hurdles that were proving to be the biggest obstacles for the respondents in our study. But this is customer experience management, so let's not forget the customer in this process, and improving the customer-facing aspects of your experience will help to achieve the benefits as well. So if we remember briefly back to those obstacles we saw a couple of slides ago, the third, fourth, and fifth ones were the lack of a seamless experience across devices, the lack of an always-on experience, and the disparate data sets, the inability to analyze your customer data. Well, 65% say that providing a personalised experience, providing personalised information is a way in which they've achieved the benefits that we've seen. 61% say that providing a frictionless experience across their devices has enabled them to achieve those benefits. And 41% have said that better connecting their customer information across their life cycle have done this. Now, let's not forget that not necessarily all businesses will have the ability to do these things yet. So they won't, we've seen that obstacles for a lot of them are these very things that we're seeing on the screen. So imagine if they can overcome those obstacles, how much closer to their benefits they can get if we're seeing that that's a key way in order to go on to achieve those benefits. So ultimately, organisations who invest in technology, their skills, and these customer-facing attributes of the experience are the ones that will go on to see the benefits. So it sounds really simple. I mean, it does sound simple on paper, but many organisations are still not where they could be. There's not many in that category ahead of what their customers want. So how do you actually obtain the marketing return on investment? And before we get to the how, let's just talk a little bit more about the why we want to do this and add even more weight to that, even more weight to your kind of case to the board. So big numbers on this slide, but ultimately more than 9 in 10 across all of these say that increased revenue and better lead conversion and sales conversion rates are a direct return on marketing investment. So again, evidence of that continuation of the cycle of benefits. The more that you can make your customer experience work for you, the harder it will work for you. The more you will increase your revenue, the more you will improve your sales cycles. You will have better, stronger, more reliable sales conversion rates. It's all interlinked. I can't say it enough. It is all interlinked. So that's just adding further weight to the why we want to be doing this. But what about the how? How do organisations leverage this marketing ROI properly? Well, 3 words: customer experience management. And I will let the stats do the talking here. 80% say that customer experience management is important for delivering marketing ROI. So seeing all those benefits on the previous slide, the increased revenue, the increased sales and the lead conversions, really important for delivering marketing ROI. Also really important for delivering a strong customer experience. So we've seen how crucial having a strong customer experience is for so many aspects of this, improving the lifetime value of your customers, making them happier, increasing your revenues. So 77% think that this is most important for delivering a strong customer experience management. They recognise the need for delivering a strong customer experience, they recognise the need for management, appropriate and successful management when it comes to this. So are organisations going to be putting their money where their mouth is, as they say? Well, yes, 68% say that they are likely to be investing in customer experience management over the next year. So huge numbers who plan to be kind of pummeling money into customer experience management over the next year, which is excellent news. Are they likely to see anything come from this? Well, yes, a lot actually. This might be the 4th or 5th time I've talked about increased revenues throughout this, so excuse me if I sound a bit like a broken record, but those who will invest expect an 11% increase in their revenue over the next year on average. So high expectations from their customer experience management, but not without reason. It's key to getting the most from marketing investment and to enhancing the customer experience in general, which we know has a huge impact on all of those benefits we've already seen. And playing a huge part in what you need to hammer down the door of your board with, that triple return on investment. So imagine the possibilities for these future investors if we see that continuation of the cycle increase and gather momentum and that snowball effect happens. Imagine the possibility of that return on investment for those that are going to be investing in customer experience management over the next year. So, if you've all fallen asleep, just a snapshot of a summary, really, that you can take away from today. The big number here at the top, a $3 return for every $1 spent on the customer experience. A whole host of benefits are going to be seen now and into the future. There doesn't seem to be any kind of element of it waning away into the future. They are very much stable benefits that you can rely on. While many are focusing on customer experience, only a few are actually ahead. So there's your opportunity to move into that space. And finally, how you do that: upgrade your technologies, develop your skills, whether that's internally or whether that's outsourcing, and finally, invest in your customer experience management. And then just some information about Vanson Bourne. So I'll hand that back over to you, Talia.
Thank you very much, Kelsey. We're now open for questions. If you have any questions, you can submit that on the chat box on the left of your screen. We have a few questions already. The first one is, I think it's a double question. Let me go through the text here. Do you have any recommendation of favorite KPIs, and why to measure customer satisfaction? I think it's the two-way question.
So ways in which to measure customer satisfaction, sorry, was that?
I think recommended, the person is asking about recommended KPIs, favorite or recommended KPIs to measure customer satisfaction. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think we're very much data experts here at Vanson Bourne, but from a customer perspective, if I was thinking of this as the customer, I can't reiterate enough really how much I just would want to be listened to. So measuring the, whether you are collecting data via feedback, whether you are listening to or collecting metrics on click-through rates or kind of clicks on blogs or anything like that, it doesn't matter as long as you actually act upon it, in my opinion. So it's the engagement that becomes crucial. It's not so much how you're measuring it. It's more a case of measure as much as you can, listen as much as you can, but make sure that you actually go on to act on the data that you collect.
Thank you. Next question. If I'm going to a board meeting later today, what do I say to them in 3 points?
Okay, great question. I think I can do it in 3 words. It would be a $3 return is what I would probably say to my board later today. But no, in all seriousness, I think what's key to say to your board is almost how you get there. I think if you were to show them this presentation, if you were to show them any of the insight gleaned from this research program, they'd recognize the importance of the customer experience, and they'd also see that tangible impact that hasn't been kind of discovered or talked about previously. But it's how you get there that's crucial, and therefore I think it would be a case of telling them that they need to upgrade their technology and invest in their skills, and also in their appropriate customer experience management to get what is the 3-word impact, that $3 return.
Okay, great, thanks. Next question. How does the UK differ from other countries in terms of how far ahead of their customers they are?
Oh, interesting question actually, because there's quite a difference between the UK and some of the other regions. So this question is referring back to, if I just click on the slide so that we can all see it. This question is referring to the 14% who say that they are ahead of their customers' changing expectations, I believe. And it's really interesting because actually the UK has the smallest percentage of all regions who believe they're 1 step ahead. It's only 7% of those in the UK who say that they're 1 step ahead of their customers, compared to, I think, the US is something like 21%. So whether that is a cultural thing, whether the UK has that tinge of cynicism or realism or self-doubt, however you want to kind of phrase it, that's a high possibility. But they are also the most likely to say that they've seen obstacles. So it's not necessarily an unfounded amount of realism. They are the least likely region to say that they're one step ahead, but they're also the most likely to see obstacles. What's really, really interesting is if I take you right back to the start of the presentation when we saw the return, the UK having a $4 return shows that, you know, they may still have a way to go. I imagine from my own experience living in the UK that UK customers are some of the hardest to get to engage and to listen and to be kind of positive and enthusiastic about brands. There is an element of cultural cynicism, but it shows that while they may have a way to go with their customer experience strategies, they still are seeing the highest return. So it's highly possible that the UK, if they can make these investments and they can make their customer experience strategy really work for them, then they'd actually be one of the strongest markets in terms of giving customers what they want while still making those and seeing those business benefits come out. It's very possible they could be the strongest market if they can get ahead.
Thank you, Kelsey. Next question. How many German organizations have a customer experience strategy, and how many are developing one, and why?
Well, I think I maybe mentioned this as we moved through the deck earlier on, but it's actually, while Germany are out in front in terms of the benefits that they've seen, it is only, I think, around 44% who say that they have a formal customer experience strategy already in place. The remainder of them, I think, there's maybe 1 or 2 percentages that aren't doing this, but the majority of the remainder are in the process of developing a formal customer experience strategy. So it's interesting to see that they are ahead with the benefits, and what we think that may be is either that these benefits are very, very much at the forefront of the German respondents' mind. They are really feeling the impact right now because they are only just moving into that implementation stage. Or there is a really, really strong initial wave of benefits that comes regardless of the region across organizations as a result of that focus when you initially start implementing. And while it doesn't necessarily wane, and while they fully anticipate and expect the same level of benefits going into the future, it is really that impact that it's having at that particular moment where it is very much right on the surface for them, and it's going from having no customer experience strategy where they're not seeing any of these benefits to suddenly this huge, huge level of benefits because they're moving into that implementation stage.
Thank you, Kelsey. Next question. You mentioned formal customer experience strategy having one of the biggest impacts in Germany. Can you elaborate on why this may be?
Sure, yeah. So it kind of ties into the previous question a little bit, but ultimately it is the minority, actually, 44%, who say that they have a formal customer experience strategy. So it is very much at the forefront, and I think that ultimately is the answer to why that may be. It's having a huge impact in Germany because they are really feeling the impact as they move into the implementation. They're developing their customer experience strategies, and it's ultimately going from having no customer experience strategy in place, having no real, I don't want to say interest, but it's not a direct formal strategy that they had, to suddenly having one, listening to customers, getting feedback, being much more engaged and involved with customers, that they're suddenly realizing that they're seeing all of these huge, huge benefits. They are very much focused on the competitor traditionally. So they are in that 64% who say that competition is the biggest driver, and now they are focusing on the customer much more, and they're really, really starting to see the benefits as a result of that in a more formal capacity.
Thank you, Kelsey. We have one last question that we received. How do I make my customers feel more genuinely valued?
Okay, so again, a little bit thinking about one of the questions I answered earlier on, but I think it is very much listening to them and acting on what they actually say. So, of course, customers are incredibly difficult and they expect a lot and they move the goalposts and every customer is different. So it is hard to strike a balance that means that you are seeing return, you are increasing revenues, you have that bottom line investment and it makes sense for your business to move into that space while balancing all of the needs of all of your customers. It's incredibly hard to do. But this research does suggest that listening to their feedback, listening to your metrics, and acting on what they are asking for will make them feel more genuinely valued. So I know that the poll that we did kind of tipped it on its head a little bit, but from the research that we did, it isn't necessarily, whether they have instant access to a chat advisor and they can speak to somebody then and there. It isn't necessarily whether you have a product that's completely suitable for them and they don't have to shop around. It isn't whether or not they can load up something on their iPad and then have it flick across to their Chromebook when they log on to that retail site or something. It is very much a case of just listening to what it is that they want, but making sure that you go on to act on it.
Thank you. One more question we just received. In general, could you give a couple of brands which you think offer a great customer experience?
Sure, yeah. I can. Well, personally, I mean, I don't know if the question I see has come from Alexander. If you're in the UK, Alexander, you may be familiar with a bank called First Direct. Now, they are very, very, very well known for their customer experience, their customer service. But actually, in my opinion, their customer service is great. Their continuation into an experience does dip slightly. So it's really interesting to hear people's view on brands that offer fantastic customer experience, because for a lot of people, and particularly older generations, I guess, they've never necessarily had that 24/7 always-on experience. They've never necessarily had a seamless experience across devices, a ubiquitous experience across anything that they're using. So often it is the element of talking to somebody that they will kind of rate a brand on. So I would say for customer service, an incredible brand is First Direct for the customer service, but actually for that whole overall customer experience, my personal view, I think, would be Amazon, actually. I think they offer a great seamlessness. You can log onto one device and then go to another, and in your basket, everything's waiting for you. They are generally fairly good with their targeting and their personalization. So yeah, my personal view would be Amazon, but I'd be interested to know other people's, actually. So feel free to pop that in the question and answer box.
Thank you very much. We don't have any more questions, so I'd like to thank you, Kelsey, for this wonderful presentation today. And thank you, everyone that joined us for this webinar. Remember, we have much more on our website, sitecoursesummerschool.com. And I hope to see you on the next one. Oh, sorry, one last question. Sorry, one more. That's the last one. We only have time for one more. How do you manage that dip where one part of the organization is doing CX brilliantly and another part is not?
I think it's, I mean, it sounds like a simple solution, but it comes down to communication, really, across the organization. You need to make sure that, I mean, it's not, there are elements of internal battles and competition even there, actually. So interesting that competition is the biggest driver, but it's not, your customer base are your customer base. They don't belong to one department. They don't belong to one particular person. That, it's not the responsibility of the CMO to make sure the customers are really happy, but everyone in IT doesn't really care. There needs to be a level of integration, and that can only really come from communication. There's cross-department investment maybe, but ultimately communication is absolutely key in terms of making sure that even if one part of the organisation is doing it brilliantly, they share how they're doing that. They tell you how they're making customers happy and how they're seeing that return, because ultimately the business should be a holistic environment. It shouldn't be kind of department against department, dog eat dog kind of thing.
Okay, thank you, now for good. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Kelsey, for your presentation today, and I'll see you on the next one.
Yes, thank you very much, Talia, and thanks everyone for joining.